from USA Today and contributor, ABC News and CNN and so many others. Thrilled to have a few minutes with Christine Brennan here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Christine?
Rich, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you again.
You bet. Thank you, and good to see you again. So what's your opinion on this subject matter?
Yeah, well, I've given it, as you know, over the last 60 hours. I broke the news right around midnight, Friday to Saturday morning. And I think on both fronts, merit and publicity, you, of course, mentioned it, it's just a total swing and a miss by the national governing body, by USA Basketball, just a missed opportunity. And but I'll start with my answer by saying I have covered this women's basketball team, and I've covered it longer than anyone else probably. I reported on that team at the 1984 Olympics in LA, and every single Olympics after, I haven't missed one, lucky me, so fortunate. I have dropped into the women's basketball team at some point. I think I counted 5 at least gold medal games that I covered. And what happens when you go to a women's gold medal game, U.S. women's basketball, the greatest team, most dominant team on the planet, men's, women's, any sport, Rich, I could make that case. They last lost in the 1992 Olympics. That's how good they are. But when I stand in that press tribune, it's tumbleweeds. There's a few reporters here, a few there, Bob Ryan, a couple others. I remember Bob and I talking in London at the 2012 Olympics. Of course, others, but in general, nowhere near the coverage that they deserve. And I will say this, many of our buddies in the sports media, male-dominated sports media, obviously, fine. The men, the guys have laughed at me for going, like, oh, I'm not doing that. They'll cover the men's basketball team, but they won't cover the women's. That is a fact. It is part of the story. So you put Caitlin Clark on that team, the team that so richly deserves attention and doesn't get it and won't get it without her, because there's just so much going on in an Olympics. On that same day, there probably will be 30 other gold medals given out, and sports editors and others have to make a decision. Do you go to Simone Biles? Do you go to women's soccer? Where do you go? It's not, there's just too much going on. You put Caitlin Clark on that team, and every single one of those guys that can't stand women's basketball are running to watch that team, and not just Americans. I was at the Masters. A British journalist came up and said he couldn't wait to cover Caitlin Clark for, of course, his audience in Great Britain and around Europe at the Olympics. That's not going to happen. Think about the dream team in 1992, Rich, the men's team, how that grew basketball around the world, especially for boys and men, and where it reached Africa. Well, the opportunity with Caitlin Clark's popularity, Africa, Europe, Asia. Think of how many number 22 USA jerseys would have been sold. Money that could have then been pumped back in to help have developmental programs in the U.S. and maybe around the world. Gone, not happening. And I know people might say, oh, she's crazy, whatever. Well, I was there. I've been there. I've covered it. I've seen the lack of interest. And right after you, my next hit is a New Zealand radio show. I'm sure they're nowhere near as good as you or have the reach, Rich Eisen. New Zealand, when the guy got in touch, I said, really? What? He goes, we love Caitlin Clark here. We're devastated. And then he even texted me, my mom is devastated. New Zealand, that is how terrible this decision was. And we haven't even started talking about merit and her good play.
So then let's get to the why. Then based on your reporting, why did they leave Caitlin Clark off this team?
I'm working on that. I'm continuing to work on it. In my piece that people can find, there's no paywall, USA Today, that was up Saturday afternoon. I didn't get much sleep over the weekend, but Saturday afternoon, I report 2 sources, impeccable sources. You know me, you and I both have been around a while. No way am I going to, torch my reputation without knowing that I feel very comfortable. 2 different sources told me, these are people who've been decades and decades in women's basketball, that they had been told that one of the concerns about Caitlin, this is, by the way, before the decision, before I was able to break that news, that the concern was that if she's on the team and only plays a few minutes, which of course she'd only play a few minutes, that the outcry and the uproar in the United States from her fans, millions and millions of fans, of course, which, by the way, that's a good thing for the WNBA. And of course, radio shows and everyone, whatever, would be furious that she wasn't playing more. When I first heard that, I laughed. I thought, well, that's a joke.
Well, that's absurd. That's absurd.
It is, it's like 7th grade, isn't it? And maybe it's 4th grade. And so, okay, put that like you do. You talk to people, that's reporting. You put it in my back of my mind, don't give it another thought. About 5 hours later, I run into another source, equally as strong, great, and steeped in women's basketball for probably 50 years. I asked this person, hey, what are you hearing? Caitlin Clark, Olympic team. He says the exact same thing. And I'm going, oh my God, this is something. I put a paragraph or two, and I said I'm continuing to confirm it. I did hear one other person basically say it was true as well. I haven't gone further with it because I'm waiting for USA Basketball. 60 hours and counting, not a word from USA Basketball. I think they're waiting for the embargo for the Today Show tomorrow, but that's 1950s PR. They've got a firestorm on their hands, and I'm trying to get answers. So I'm staying on it because the other piece of it too, the coach of the Olympic team, Cheryl Reeve, I do not know her, but on May 3rd, when the WNBA was promoting Caitlin Clark's first preseason game against Dallas, then Cheryl Reeve put out on Twitter, you can watch us too. She's the Minnesota Lynx coach. And she said in a hashtag, the W is more than one person. The WNBA is more than one person.
So let me just jump in here, Christine.
You're making it right? Anyway.
No. But because of what you just said, this is the most head scratching aspect in my mind of the Caitlin Clark conversation since she's left Iowa to go to the WNBA, is that the folks who have been toiling in the WNBA and probably experiencing the same tumbleweeds that you said you experienced when you were on the beat for years of one of the most dominant teams in the history of Olympic sports, okay? Or I should say Olympic sport, because that does sound, a little fancier whenever you're talking about the Olympics. But they're probably experiencing the same amount of tumbleweeds, that there is nothing but, for some, resentment. There seems to be resentment of Caitlin Clark bringing the eyeballs in. And the thing that's the biggest head scratch is I don't think it's because of what she's saying or how she's carrying herself. She's not chest pounding and saying, I'm creating this league. I have taken this league to new heights, this association to new heights. She's not saying that. So where's the animosity coming from, Christine?
Yeah, Rich, I'm reporting and continue to report and talk to people. I was texting a few people a couple minutes before coming on with you. I am equally blown away. This is the greatest moment in the history of women's sports, certainly team sports, right? Tennis, Serena, Venus, Chrissy, Martina, that's a whole different level. But in terms of, this is bigger. I wrote a month or so ago, right before our first game for USA Today, this is bigger than the 1999 Women's World Cup. And I never thought I would ever be able to say that. I covered every second of that. And this is bigger. This is a woman not wearing USA, because that's how most of our female stars are, whether it's Peggy Fleming, Katie Ledecky, Simone Biles. It's because of the Olympics or international competition. Even Serena, it's because of winning Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, representing the U.S. Clark, this is Iowa. This is the black and gold of Iowa. This isn't the coast telling the heartland what to do. This is the heartland setting the agenda for the coast. That's why this is so remarkable, unprecedented, never before seen. Why the WNBA wouldn't be embracing this, and I guess they are, but they, for example, even little things like someone's talking about Caitlin Clark, and then you see a reporter say, well, Caitlin and Angel Reese is great. She won the national title for LSU over Caitlin Clark. Absolutely. Fantastic rebounding. She's also had a great start to her season. Caitlin was the rookie of the month. Angel Reese, this is not about Angel Reese. And of course, race is a huge part, as you and I, two white people sitting here talking about this. But for this moment, facts are facts. And it's Caitlin Clark, folks. I broke the story of the charter flights because of Caitlin being viewed on social media in the Dallas-Fort Worth baggage claim, looking like an animal at the zoo. The WNBA had to immediately go, we got to do charter flights. They should have done it for Brittany Griner after she came back from being so terribly imprisoned in Putin's Russia. They didn't. Of course, that's terrible they didn't, but they are doing it now. Why not take the win? Why not take the victory? Instead, it's like it should have happened sooner. Well, I don't think time travel has been invented. And so there's that. You saw Taurasi, chilly, chippy at the women's Final Four. Brianna Stewart unable to say that she's one of the greats of all time, not the GOAT, but one of the great. Brianna Stewart literally talked for 30 seconds in circles, not saying that. What on earth was going on? But it also, as a journalist, for me, it's very insightful. And I wrote about it then. I've kept my ear to the ground. I've been talking to people since February. That's how I was fortunate enough to break the story. I'm on it. I will continue to stay on it as I go to Paris, if necessary, because it goes to the very heart of whether a woman's sport can grow and why on earth you would look the greatest thing that ever happened, and you would look at that and say that that's wrong or negative or be jealous or whatever the right word is, which I'm still trying to figure out by my reporting. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, remarkable. Look at her answer yesterday. Unbelievable poise. She's 22, folks, 22 going on 40 or 50. The perfect role model for the perfect time for women's sports. How lucky women's sports is to have her now. And she has been nothing but, grace and class, goes on Saturday Night Live. What other WNBA players go on Saturday Night Live, folks? And would, of course, mentioning all of her heroes, Rich. And again, Caitlin Clark speaking, and the adults, USA Basketball, US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, crickets, nothing for 60 hours. I've been trying, and I'll keep trying.
A few minutes left with Christine Brennan here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about the merit part of it, because, again, you've been covering this for quite some time, and there's a lot of folks. You mentioned how the men were making fun of you for covering the gold medal press conferences of the U.S. women's team when there's a men's team to cover. A lot of the same men are now making, decisions or comments or having takes over the merit part of this that, quite frankly, I don't think they're qualified to make. And I'm one of them. So I'll leave that to you. What about the merit part of all of this?
Well, and of course, also the guys, and again, love them. And, I think many of them mean well. But if women's and men's sports were equal, like if the WNBA players were making the same as the NBA players, which will not happen in our lifetimes or our children's or our grandchildren's lifetime, probably, if it was the TV money was the same and ratings, then we wouldn't have this conversation because you wouldn't have to grow the game, right?
Right.
And you'd say, oh, we're already there. We're so not already there, obviously, the decimal points on the salaries. And so, that's part of it. But let's go, as you asked, about merit. And I was just right before we went on, I was looking at the WNBA stats. By the way, something I've covered the WNBA off and on, but it's not something I would be doing often, and focusing on the WNBA as I have. And frankly, all because of Caitlin Clark and the interest that our readers and viewers have in it. Caitlin Clark is 4th in assists in the WNBA. That's better than several of the women who are on the list as guards, and certainly better than Diana Taurasi. She and Taurasi are tied for three-pointers made. And in points per game, Caitlin Clark is one spot above. She was 13th. I think she's now 14th or 15th, and Taurasi's right behind her. Apples to apples, apples to oranges. We can pick and choose. I'm sure people are screaming at their, as they're listening to us, but those are stats, folks. And in a subjective decision, I think there's been this, that can be part of the conversation, Rich. And I think there has been a notion out there for some that Caitlin Clark has not had a good first month. I think she's had a great first month. She is being bird dogged and blitzed and double and triple teamed and covered all 94 feet. There is no one in the WNBA that has received that. Not Taurasi, not Jewel Lloyd, not Kelsey Plum, not Inescu, none of them. What does that mean? That means she's the most important player in the league. She's not the best player in the league, not yet, maybe never, who knows? But she's the most important because they're treating her that way. And I think that's fascinating. And these are defensive statistics, by the way, not mine. They're statistics in the league, that she is the most heavily defended player in the league. Not Taurasi, not any of them. So that tells me that people think she's the best, or that she's worthy of that. Not the best, but focus, whatever. She's the one you want to stop. And yet I saw her have 7 threes and score 30 against a really bad Washington team the other day in front of the biggest crowd, over 20,000 in 17 years in the WNBA. And then within a few hours, she was being told she wasn't on the team. This is a magical moment. She is the high wire act in the circus, Rich. She is the trapeze act. Grandma and Grandpa in the produce section, who would never turn on men's or women's basketball, are running to their TVs, are aware of the difference between Ion and Prime and NBA TV, and they are setting their schedules around Caitlin Clark. guaranteed, because these numbers are there. And that's what USA Basketball has pushed away now. Congratulations. You have literally pushed that away. Those people, we wish they would watch Breanna Stewart and Taurasi, but they're not yet. That's the reality. You can wish it were, but it's the reality. And that, again, is the opportunity. You have all those sports writers coming to watch Caitlin Clark. She's the magnet, right? And then what do? Caitlin maybe plays 3 or 4 minutes, 1 for 2 in 3-point range, 3 points. But they end up writing about Breanna Stewart or Jewel Lloyd or Brittany Griner or whomever, right? And that's how you grow a sport. Caitlin would have been the conduit to that, and that's all gone now. And I think history will judge this so incredibly poorly about not growing the game when the mission, one of the mission statements of USA Basketball, is all about growing the game.
Christine, thank you for the time. Say hello to my new friends in New Zealand.
I will. And thank you. And thanks for the conversation. Keep up the great work.
For you
Take
too.
care.
You too. Look for more of my texts and calls, Christine. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich.
You bet. That's Christine Brennan of USA Today, CNN, ABC News, and so much more right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
Yeah, that was great.
Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.